There was a lot of controversy surrounding Adam Goodes this week.
Former Australian of the Year Adam Goodes has sparked a social media storm.
A passionate Indigenous player, Adam Goodes, performed the provocative post-goal celebration.
So the war cry from Adam here.
Probably best not to do it, though.
The war cry attracted plenty of criticism. Eddie Maguire was upset that he wasn't told beforehand.
Had we known before the game that Adam or the Indigenous players were planning to do some sort of war cry, we could have been able to educate and understand the situation. So like everything in life, Carl, it comes down to communication.
Eddie's right. There should have been more communication. I mean, sure, it was the AFL's Indigenous round and an Indigenous player with an Indigenous mouthguard wearing an Indigenous jersey scored with an Indigenous ball. But you really do need to warn people when shit's about to get all Indigenous. Discussions continued on Sunday's Bowl Report.
I don't think this helps the reconciliation movement. It's me saying to you, mate... What a ridiculous suggestion. It's me saying to you... And we're supposed to be coming kumbaya together.
Yes. Goodsy went and stuffed everything up when Andrew Bolt was this close to achieving racial harmony. From now on, when I think of narrowly missed chances for us all to come together, I'm going to think of this.
It's me saying to you...
The Goodes furor has us all doing some hard thinking.
When he does the war cry, does the spear chuckers, if you called him now Adam Goodes a spear chucker, you'd be called a racist. When he actually has done the spear throwing as part of his act.
Darren there diving straight into the question we're all asking ourselves, how does this war cry affect my ability to say spear chucker in polite conversation? So, 8 seconds of Adam Goodes' war dance has received wall-to-wall media coverage, and just today, New South Wales Parliament even wasted time passing a motion labelling Eddie Maguire a buffhead. That is true. But when it comes to issues of actual consequence, like Indigenous disadvantage, this week we may have completely ignored the pointy end of the invisible spear. And just a quick warning, shit's about to get all Indigenous.
Young Indigenous Australians are 24 times more likely to be jailed than their non-Indigenous peers. That's the conclusion of a 2-year investigation by Amnesty International.
According to a report released yesterday, Indigenous youths are as overrepresented in our prisons as white people are at our organic farmers' markets. And I would know because I do love an heirloom citrus. The causes of our astronomical Indigenous incarceration rate are complex, but let's start at the top, literally, in the Northern Territory.
The proportion of people in jail per head of population in the Northern Territory is third highest on the planet. We are behind China, who get the gold medal, the United States of America, and we're on the dais behind them getting the bronze.
Third in the world at imprisoning people. If you asked me what the Northern Territory was third in the world at, I would have guessed, I don't know, acceptance of thongs as formal wear or the likelihood of electing a croc to Parliament. The Territory is so good at jailing people, its government's single largest infrastructure project is a new $500 million prison. But you know what they say, if you build it, they will come. If you force them to come. In the Northern Territory, 86% of inmates are Indigenous, and this won't be helped by new laws where you can be imprisoned without requiring any paperwork.
The laws are aimed at getting so-called troublemakers off the streets and reducing paperwork for police officers.
I know the burden on our police officers, and unfortunately paperwork and excessive amounts of paperwork do affect the operation of police.
In the Northern Territory, you can be put in jail without any paperwork. That is incredible. I don't even like it when a waiter takes my breakfast order without a pen and paper. Look, I'm sure your memory techniques are wonderful, but I ordered a latte. That's an omelette. We are all too ready to put someone behind bars, but yesterday, Amnesty International made clear what the implications would be.
Australia is detaining Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children at the highest rate since the 1991 Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. The likelihood is they will spend the rest of their lives caught in the revolving door of the criminal justice system.
The causes are many: chronic poverty, lack of education, disruption of families. But all of this is being aggravated by the way our justice system treats young Indigenous people. Take the case of Lawrence Boney.
Remarkably, as a juvenile, he was sentenced to a year in prison for being stopped with cannabis twice. Its total street value, $30.
A year in prison for 30 bucks of weed. While that sentence was reduced on appeal, it really made me glad my university days were under the relaxed policing of the free-loving 90s. Now, that may sound excessive, but it is nothing compared to this.
Another Indigenous boy round here received a year in jail for stealing hamburger buns.
Oh, we're jailing people for stealing bread. How very 1788 of us. This mass imprisonment is also hugely expensive. According to Amnesty International, keeping an Indigenous youth in detention for a year costs $440,000. And as they point out, for that figure, you could put an Indigenous person through an entire undergraduate medical degree. Jail should be the last option, but too often it's the first, sometimes with tragic results.
An Aboriginal man has died in custody at a police station in central Darwin. Police confirmed that the 59-year-old was taken into custody for alcohol offences last night.
This comes after the similar case of Jalika Dew, who last year died in custody after being imprisoned for owing just $1,000 in unpaid fines. Indigenous Australians are being imprisoned in record numbers, often with no paperwork and for the smallest of offences. And too many are dying in custody. Now, when you have a problem this big, it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. But there are things that can be done, like the Custody Notification Service. It's a phone line that police must call when an Indigenous person is arrested in the New South Wales or ACT, so a lawyer can give legal advice, notify family, and try to ensure the safety of the person in custody.
The Custody Notification Service is a 24-hour phone line, and for some, it's a lifesaver.
We have not had a death in custody in New South Wales since before 2000.
The program costs $500,000 a year, but federal funding is about to run out.
The CNS works and it's cheap. Not only should its funding be renewed in New South Wales, it should be rolled out nationally. Just yesterday, Amnesty revealed that we're at risk of losing a generation of Indigenous Australians to incarceration. We lost a generation before. And if Eddie Maguire taught us anything this week, it's that he probably doesn't need to have an opinion on everything Adam Goodes does. But if he taught us anything else, it's that it's much better to have a warning before something happens than to have to offer an apology afterwards. Amnesty has warned us, not that something's about to happen, but that something's happening now. And we don't want to have to say sorry again.